3, 2, 1.
What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. I'm Blake. With me is Austin, and
Sir.
today we are here to review the big win against the North Carolina State Wolfpack.
Correct.
And honestly, I'm looking forward to it. It was a pretty fun win. Um, and yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting Austin's reaction to the game. As you all can see, it's a little bit of a different format for this episode. I am out of town currently, so I'm sitting in a hotel room. Austin is back in the cave, the Vol Cave, where we
Yes.
typically record our podcast. But we're having to do the conference call here, so hopefully the quality. It's not like our quality was
It's
something to
never
write home
great.
about to
Yeah.
begin with. But here we are on a Discord call, so hopefully it's good enough quality for y'all. But man, what a fun game! We're just gonna dive right into it, y'all. Again, the podcast is pretty early in its life. This is, we just started a few weeks ago. So if you're new to the Vol Talk podcast, Austin and I are brothers, and we love the Tennessee Vols. We love chatting back and forth about the Vols, and our banter is usually pretty fun when it comes to the Vols. And so we want y'all to join us, and hopefully you enjoyed as well. So let us know in the comments, what your thoughts were on the big win against the NC State Wolfpack. Let us know, what suggestions you might have for the podcast. And again, let us know your thoughts. And one day we hope to even maybe have some people call in and be able to join in the fun with us. But for now, it's just me and Austin. So Austin, let's get initial reactions to a big win. 51-10 final score. What were your initial thoughts?
Domination, brother. That's what happened.
Yeah.
It was a
Yes.
domination. And I said on the preview show that the matchup to watch was the NC State offensive line versus the Tennessee defensive line. That's what I
You
said in
did
the
say
preview
that.
show.
You
And
did say
that's
that. Yeah.
what the game came down to, man. We were rolling 12 deep on the defensive line, okay? Rolling 12 deep on the defensive line, rotating every drive, and they just couldn't block a soul, dude. From start to finish, man. They probably had, dude, and this might not be an exact stat, okay? I didn't fact check it. But just from what I saw of the game, okay, they had 2, 3 positive runs the entire game. Like literally
Oh
the
yeah.
entire game.
Yeah, I do remember it was close to halftime, and they had no rushing yards, and then they finally got, like maybe just like a little 7 yard gain or something that finally put them in the positive. So the run defense was stout, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head. I mean, that Tennessee defensive line, we absolutely dominated in the trenches. And what's crazy, bro, and what gets me excited is the fact that I saw some people online talking about, like there was even a troll on the community page for the Vols on Bleacher Reports talking about, oh, James Pierce, people saying James Pierce is the best player in college football, and he's not put up any numbers, so it's all talk, it's all hype. And I'm sitting here like,
Just
our
wait.
defensive line, yeah, well, just wait. But it's also like, did you not? It's like, oh, James Pierce didn't do anything. Did you see how dominant our entire defensive line was?
Dude,
I mean,
it's
and like you said, the depth. We were rotating through so many
every drive,
like
dude.
every drive, just rotating out, and they were still making plays.
Oh, dude, yes, exactly. Like you don't. So yeah, James Pierce is a superstar. We know that. But what makes a defensive line great is when you have 8 to 10 guys that can go in and make plays. And
Yes.
Tennessee
Yep.
hasn't had this kind of depth on the D line since what 2000s? Like
Oh yeah.
2000, 2001.
Hmm.
I mean the last what 4 coaches before Heupel got here never had this kind of depth on the D line, dude. I mean it was an absolutely dominant performance start to finish, and that was I mean really, dude. the crazy thing is the offense wasn't dominant start to finish. But I believe the
Right.
defensive
Right.
line was dominant start to finish. Like sacking the QB, getting pressure on the quarterback. Like you said, I mean, they were suffocating in the run game, dude.
Mm,
Suffocating. The amount of speed
absolutely.
on the defense from the front seven to the back, it was nuts, dude. Everyone was getting to the ball. Everyone was finding the
Yes.
ball. And gotta shout out Keenan Peely. Another huge game, dude. Just
Yeah.
flying around, making plays. On in the very few times a running back got to the second level, he made the play. Like there wasn't very many times their halfbacks got past the defensive line, but when they did, the linebackers cleaned it up. The secondary was flying to the ball. Just an overall dominant defensive performance, man. Overall
Yeah.
dominant defensive performance.
And that's the headline, right? Is we talk about the Tennessee offense, the Heupel offense. We talk about Nico, right? We talk about the quarterback play. We talk about the receivers, all this. And what gets me absolutely excited and through the roof excited is the fact that the headline coming out of this game was the dominant defense.
one Hundred
The
percent.
defense didn't have. In fact, here you want to talk about a stat. Okay, this stat has been fact checked for you. Okay, you ready for one?
Yes.
This Tennessee defense hasn't given up an offensive touchdown in 12 quarters of football, dating back to the bowl game against Iowa last year. Now, here's the deal. Iowa's offense, bad. It was a bowl game. Get it. Chattanooga, get it. Bad. North Carolina State,
Yeah.
they've got a decent quarterback. That McCall's a good quarterback. They have a superstar receiver in what's his name, Concepcion,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep.
I mean, this is not a terrible offense that we're talking about, and yet this defense still hasn't given up an offensive touchdown.
Dude, at some point we got to stop saying, "Oh, it was this team or that." Like because people are already retrospectively, and people by I mean idiots in the media, okay, are already
Right.
retrospectively saying, "Oh, NC State wasn't a good team." Why'd you rank them in the top 25 if they weren't a good team? Why'd you
Right,
rank
right,
them?
exactly.
Y'all rank
Yeah,
them. You're the ones who do
yeah,
it. We didn't do it. Y'all did.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
okay, you can either admit we got it wrong, or you can give Tennessee credit. Okay,
exactly, exactly.
like at the end of the day, yes, maybe they're not a top tier team. No, I never thought they were. But dude, it's an ACC opponent. It's a team that again was in the preseason top 25, who a lot of people had expectations going into the year. And like you just made a great point. Their strength was their offense. That was their strength. They thought the passing game was going to cook. And dude, if you go into the matchup, if you look at the preview show, I said the one way we're going to lose this game is if NC State just cooks our secondary. They just cooked
Yeah,
the second. Dude, did they have a pass over 10 yards? I mean, it was suffocating defense, dude. And I don't know how they're
right.
guarding the back end because, I mean, the quarterback had about, a second and a half to throw the ball every play. But, I
Right.
mean, at the end of the day, dude, I got to give the secondary credit too, man. No plays over the top, dude. I mean, they were dinking and dunking the first couple of drives, but I mean, it was a bend but don't break defense at that point by us. But it was never gave up a deep ball ever. I don't know if they had a play over 20 yards in the game.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know if they did either. We'd have to go back and look at the stats, but I mean, man, you're absolutely right. And I think it was they came out and executed their game plan pretty well in the beginning, right? Offensively,
Yes.
right? Because like you said, they were dinking and dunking and hitting those little, 5, 7 yard gains. I mean, they didn't have they. I was getting frustrated in the very beginning of the game because they were like 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 on third downs to start the game, but they were literally we talk about the cliche of announcers, third and manageable, right? But NC State legitimately had they were getting a third and 3, a third and 4 every time, right? Like they had third and manageables every time because they were just hitting those little 5, 7 yard passes. um and so they executed their initial game plan great. And I think there were a couple times. Here's the deal. I think there were a couple times where the secondary was good enough. They had enough coverage that it allowed time for the defensive line to get into the backfield, right? Because again, at the beginning of the game, you've got 1 2 seconds, and then boom, the ball's out, and they've got a 5 yard gain. But as the game went on, that became less and less prevalent, right? And we saw that the defensive line was getting in the backfield, and again, like you said, credit to the secondary. And hey, let's we've been talking about the secondary on this podcast since the beginning and asking them to just be hot and ready. I tell you, who was hot and ready last night was freaking Will Brooks.
Oh
I
yeah,
mean, a
baby.
walk on safety, senior safety, takes an 85-yard pick sixer to the house. That was
Hmm.
awesome.
Yeah, dude. I mean, that changed the game. That
Yeah.
absolutely changed the game. That broke NC State, dude, because it was a relatively close game. So
Yes.
we start off the game, and we were kind of struggling. I mean, we were stagnant on offense. We had that one good drive in the second drive of the game, and outside of that, we really weren't moving the ball, dude. The offense was playing pretty sloppy. Nico had that one bad interception over the middle of the field, and NC State was driving to go tie the game before halftime, dude. It was 10-3
Yep.
with about 4 minutes left. They were driving, and like you said, dude, Will Brooks makes that massive pick six, dude. Totally broke NC State, totally changed the momentum of the game. And after that, dude, they couldn't drive the ball at all, dude. They literally couldn't do anything on offense, and they couldn't stop us on defense. So yeah, man. I mean that totally broke. I mean it broke the game wide open, dude. And massive credit for him. And dude, how the secondary played. It's kind of tough to evaluate them. I haven't looked at like the numbers or anything like that, but and I need to and I will. But with how good the D line played, dude, it is hard to say. Okay,
Yeah.
is the secondary going to be able to keep it up? It's one great game, but dude, I mean, I didn't think great was in their realm of outcome. But I wasn't just impressed with how they were guarding the back end, dude. I was also impressed with how they're flying to the football, man. Like the
Yeah.
tackling. I was worried about the
Yes.
tackling out of the Chattanooga game. Dude, when they threw those screen passes or they were throwing those dink and dunk passes, dude, they were on them immediately and making the tackle,
Yes.
man. Immediately. So I was extremely, I mean, top to bottom on the defense, extremely impressed.
Yeah. I mean, you hit the nail on the head because Austin, how many times in the past decade of volunteer football, under your Butch Joneses, even your Pruitts, who was a defensive guy, how many times were we giving up big plays on defense because of missed tackles or bad tackling? You know, I mean, it's been and call me spoiled. Growing up in the '90s, watching great defensive volunteer football. Um, you know, but it was just the tackling has been awful, for us the past decade or so, and yeah, you're absolutely right. So it's like, okay, you might give up. You might, okay, allow a reception, a little 5 yard reception, but then they're not getting any yards after reception, right? Yards after catch. That also important YAC stat, right? Yards after catch. There was just so few yards after the catch, and you're absolutely right that's credit to that tackling and just flying to the football, swarming the football, right? So you love to see that. And we're again, this headline being the defense and how great the defense played, and tackling was excellent. The coverage, the D line, and everyone, just great defensive effort overall. Kind of leads us to one of my favorite quotes in quite some time.
Yes.
So let's talk about that
Woo-wee.
sick quote from Coach Josh Heupel after the game.
Yeah, man. That's why I'm rocking my EB jersey, man. I ain't a Chiefs fan. I'm
That's
an
right.
Eric Berry fan, baby. Go Vols. It's
That's right.
nothing but Vols for me. But yeah, man, he just shouted out the defense, man. He reminded people, okay, and I think it's a bullying point for Josh Heupel, dude, because all he's heard about is his offense since he's got on campus. But he said if you listen to him talk, he said, dude, we want to play fast on defense. Defense matters here. We're not just trying to be a high-powered offense, dude. We're trying to be an all-around football team, and he's not been able to do that, dude. With the scholarship reduction and everything, he always keeps mentioning that because it's true. You can't run 12 deep on the defensive line when you have a reduction in scholarships, dude. You have to cut guys somewhere. So this is the most depth he's ever had. So after the game, he reminded people, man. He's like, this is the home of Reggie White, okay, Al Wilson, and the great Eric Berry, dude, whose number needs to be retired, by the way. Absolutely horrible that's not retired yet, but that's beside the point. Every time I see somebody wear it either needs to be retired or the best player on defense needs to wear the number. That's the reality. The best player on defense has to wear the number or it needs to be retired, okay? Because I've watched too many not good players wear the number.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if it's the best player on the defense. It needs to be a generational talent, that can come in and maybe lay claim to the number 14, right?
Exactly.
But yeah, the number 14 needs to be in the rafters, needs to be retired. But yeah, man, I mean, you're absolutely right. Coach Heupel came out and he said, in the press conference, and he was answering a question about the defense, and then and he I don't know if you've seen the clip. He paused. He was done with his answer, and he said, "Well, actually, let me say one more thing." And he reminded people. He said the standard at Tennessee is to have an elite defense.
Yes.
And this, like you said, this is the home of Reggie White, of Al Wilson. I love that Al Wilson, that neck pad, absolute monster, right? And Eric Berry, and so it's like, and the thing about it is it's funny because we're talking about the defense, but the offense still wasn't bad, right? And we'll get to it. There was a couple mistakes on offense, right? We saw a mistake, or maybe even two from Nico, right? And so we saw some mistakes on offense, but we're sitting here talking about the defense and how excellent they played. But we still hung 51, and it's 7 of those were defensive points. So what's that? 44 were still offensive points.
Yeah.
And so the fact that Heupel recognizes that, hey, we're not just going to be an offensive football team. This is going to be a complete football team. And the thing is, bro, is Georgia, right? You look at Georgia the past couple. Well, you look at really any national championship winner over the past few years, and they're a complete football team, right?
Absolutely.
But bro, I don't know that any of them could lay claim to the absolute crazy high octane kind of offense that we have and now we're looking like we might have this high octane defense as well. That could be scary. I don't want to get too excited. It's still early, but that could be scary.
100% agree, dude. What's the weakness on the team right now? Yeah, we said going into the season it's a secondary. First of all, it hasn't showed up, okay? And not only, I thought our defense, that the possibility for our defense was good this season, okay? And if we had a good defense in 2022, we probably are in the college football playoff. Let's be honest, okay? And because we had an elite
100%.
offense. We had an elite offense. Dude, it's looking like this team could have an elite offense and an elite defense. And so what's the limit? Like, to me right now, just watching the college, because I'm a college football fan. I don't just watch Tennessee, but it's all Vols. I mean, I'm still going to be rooting for the Vols, of course. But I'm looking at the landscape, and I'm like, we're a top 14 right now, dude. I mean, if our defense is what it's been the last 2 weeks, really, like you made a good point, since the Iowa Bowl game, I mean, I guess Nico just makes the defense better. Like, I mean, every time the man starts, the defense doesn't want to give up a touchdown. That's insane.
Yeah.
But, man, dude, because I told you before season, dude, if you add an elite quarterback to any team, I mean, you can do anything, dude. That's how important the quarterback is. But it seems like we've added an elite quarterback, and now we fix the defense. We have a great defense. So I'm sitting back and saying, who can't we beat? Why,
Yeah.
like, why not us at this point? Like, what's the weakness? you know?
100% of that. I mean, exactly. The field is open. I mean, so obviously Georgia is still looking strong, right? Georgia's looking like Georgia has the last few years. Kirby Smart has built a great program. Apparently, he's built it with some potential thugs, since they can't stay uh, out of handcuffs, um, but he's built a good program. Sarkisian over at Texas is obviously building a strong program, and Texas is looking really scary, right? And then of course Ohio State, all these different things. But at the end of the day, bro, I mean, you're absolutely right, and I don't, again, Vol, um, battered Vol syndrome, right? BVS. I don't want to jump the gun,
Not
right?
on this
I understand
podcast. Not
yeah,
today.
it's
51 to
listen,
10, man.
listen. I know. Listen, all I'm saying is this. I understand it's still early in the season, but let's put it this way, Austin, because a couple of podcasts ago you made a great point. We were talking about how a team can grow over the course of the season, right? A team can grow, and we were even talking. I think it was when we were talking in that first episode about our season predictions. And if you remember, we're talking about, hey, look, if we drop a one or two early, it's going to be a tough season. Like, we're probably going to end up like 8-4, whatever the case may be. But we said, hey, a team can grow over the season, and get better, and a team will grow over the season. Because you look at 2022, and we struggled and had to win in the OT against Pittsburgh, right, against Pitt. Fast forward to 2 years later, 2024 now, and a very similar game to the Pitt game, right? We're playing a top 25 team, a good, solid football team in NC State. We're playing them in a neutral side game, but for all intents and purposes, I mean, there was a lot of orange there. Vols fans showed out, but there's also a ton of red there, right? And so it's kind of on the road early in the season, week number 2. And whereas 2 years ago we struggled and we had to win an OT, we blew them out. We blew them out. Didn't give up an offensive touchdown and scored 44 offensive points. So the point is I'm optimistic because we're in. I mean being in this position, just like we talked about it before, we'd much rather be in this position than the opposite position, which is barely eking out a win against NC State, right?
Yeah, definitely, dude. Um, dude, that thing is, I mean, I still think there's room to grow. Like, that's my takeaway. The
Yep.
offense, okay, the running game was incredible. The running game can't get much better.
Yep.
I mean, Dylan
Right.
Sampson is an absolute dog. I mean, he's the best running back in the SEC, no question about it. I mean, yeah, I'll get into more of his stuff later, but I want to say, dude, the offense had room in this game, dude. Like, so
Yes.
there are some negatives from this game, and it's on the
Yes.
offensive side of the ball. And it's not just Nico's interceptions, okay? The second intercept, the pick six, was like, yeah, maybe he should have just avoided throwing that and taking the sack, whatever. My biggest problem right now with the offense is the penalties, dude. I mentioned this
Yes.
to you
Yes.
after the Chattanooga game, man. I said, the penalties are killing drives. And that,
Yep.
dude, go look at the penalty stats, man. We had like 7 penalties in this game. Like, bad penalties. Now, the one late hit, I kind of give Keenan Pili a little bit of slack for that because it kind of seemed like, I think he thought the play was still going, so he tackled the guy again. So that one, I'll give him a pass. But all the pre-snap penalties, the holdings, you got to clean it up, man. You got to clean it
Yeah.
up because, listen, we dominated NC State, okay? We were clearly much, much better than NC State. But, dude, it's not for SEC play, bro. Like,
Mm-hmm.
SEC play, it's going to get a little bit tighter. It's going to get a little bit tighter. You got Oklahoma, okay, in 2
You're on the
weeks.
road against Oklahoma. Yep.
Exactly. You got Georgia still. You got Alabama. Arkansas, dude, look into Arkansas. They just lost a close game to
Yeah.
Oklahoma State. Dude, not an easy game, man. So my point is that SEC competition dude, it's going to a whole nother level. So you might be able to get away with sloppy play against NC State, and I think that's why. I mean, if you look at Heupel after the game, bro, it seemed like he was pissed. I mean, he was pissed. Like, I mean, they asked him after the press conference too. He's like, "Yeah, there's a lot of meat left on the bone on offense, dude." Yeah. Now, defensively, I don't know. I mean, that's one of
right.
I mean, that's one of the top defensive performances. And shout out to Tim Banks, man, the defensive coordinator. A bunch of idiot Vol fans a couple years ago wanting him fired. Thank God we didn't fire him. He might be living in the offseason because he's about to be a head coach somewhere next offseason, but
yeah,
he ain't getting fired. I'll tell you that.
I mean, yeah, no, for sure not. And yeah, I mean, and it's been rocky the past couple of years. People are like, defense, question mark. But there always seemed to be like glimpses of hope on the defense, right? And also let's also be, let's put some perspective on it. The defense the past few years has never been like the defense was under Derek Dooley. Yeah. Right, if you remember those years where we were, giving up literally 50 points a game. I mean,
dude. Why you said that? I know Vols fans don't want to think about Derek Dooley right now, but I have to say this, okay? Because I was watching some CPAT highlights. Okay, first of all, CPAT was a dog, bro. CPAT was an absolute dog, bro. Dog, dude. He was an absolute dog. But I was watching a highlight of CPAT. Tell me how Troy had 28 points in the first half against us one of those years. 28 points in the first half to Troy?
It was a bad time, bro. They were wasn't it old Sal Sunseri running that defense, and he was running like a 3-4 defense or whatever the case was. I mean,
honestly, I don't want to think about it. Like, it was. I saw that. I was like, yeah, CPAT's balling, but they got 28 points. Like, what? I was mind blown, bro.
It was a bad time.
It was a really bad time.
So, exactly. So it's like, perspective, right? Like we, and Heupel knows that the standard at Tennessee is an elite defense, right? And so, obviously Tennessee fans want that as well. So I get it. But the perspective is like, even the past couple of years, the defense wasn't quite nearly that bad. But
he has to have the personnel.
Exactly, like you mentioned before, he didn't have the personnel. We had the scholarship reductions. We're still trying to, get depth, right? We're trying to get Heupel recruited players installed and get some depth. And so, but there was always glimpses of hope, and so now hopefully we're seeing the payoff. Now here's the deal: do I think that we're going to have this kind of defensive performance once we play, Alabama, maybe even Oklahoma, right, or Georgia or whatever? No, I think obviously we're going to see, especially with the secondary, right? I think we're going to eventually see the weaknesses come up. So we need to prepare ourselves for that, in my opinion.
I agree.
In my opinion, but I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, it's like there's not a ton to complain about right now, except for those freaking penalties, man. And we even like you said, we talked about it a few podcasts ago that we needed to clean up, clean the football up, and so because like you said, I mean SEC football is coming, but so let's we've kind of talked about the big headlines from the game. I gotta shout out to QB, man. Because, listen, if you looked at Nico's stat line, okay, if you just looked at his stats after the game, let's say you didn't watch the 51-10 slaughtering, okay, and I'm sure a lot of people tuned out of that game pretty quickly. I didn't. I watched every second. But, dude, if you just looked at the stats, oh, man, pedestrian performance. No. Nico was dealing, dude. Yeah, I mean, so the stat line is like 2 passing touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, so 3 overall touchdowns, 2 interceptions, right? And so like you said, you look at that and it looks pedestrian. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about talk about his performance. So let's get the interceptions out of the way first, right? So the second interception, the pick six, not great, but he got hit, his arm got hit, right? And so it's like maybe part of that was his decision making, but really that's probably on the offensive line.
It's also a little unlucky. I mean, when your arm gets hit like that, you can't really control where the ball is going.
Yeah.
Like, and it just fell right into a guy's hands. Like, there's a level of unluckiness with that. But
Mm-hmm.
like you said, there's blame to go around with that. Like it's one of those things that yes needs to be cleaned up because like there's no real reason to take that risk in that kind of moment. Like just take the sack. Um, so and then the second interception, I told you I thought it was tipped possibly, and that might still be true. I'm not sure, but either way, he threw it. He threw it just in bad cover. I mean, it was there was three
Yeah.
guys in the middle of the field, and he really shouldn't have thrown that one. Um, but listen, it's a young
I
quarterback.
think
He's
that
gonna make mistakes.
yeah, that was the first interception, right? That
Correct.
that very first interception. I think that was in the first half. And yeah, exactly like you said. It's a. I mean, let's talk about that, right? He's still a redshirt freshman, so
Exactly,
he's
man.
he's gonna make he's got to learn.
Yep. And he thought he could just zip it
And,
in there, man. He believes in his arm strength so much that he thought he could get that ball in there. But that's one that you should probably just don't take that risk, you know. And that was a point in the game where it's like, you know, that could have been crucial if NC State, you know, didn't get beat down like they did. Um,
yeah, it could have been a critical moment, but and again, it's I want to be optimistic, right? Because we talked about how last year, part of the issue with Joe Milton was his decision making, and he was slow to make decisions and kind of almost like afraid to try to zip the balls in there. And so,
sure.
it's nice to see Nico, making those decisions, right? But
Agreed.
now it's like, over time, hopefully he'll learn, like, okay, yeah, like, that one, maybe, take that one back um, and so, yeah, I think it's just going to be a growing process.
I agree. And what impressed me about that first interception, because Herbstreit was talking about it on the call, he was like, "How is he going to respond? This is a young quarterback. He just threw his
Right.
first collegiate interception. How's he going to respond?" Well, I don't know if it was the first play in the next drive or whatever, but dude, he hit that beautiful deep shot to squirrel down the sideline, man.
The squirrel. Yeah.
Absolutely gorgeous, dude. Dude. And I gotta say this about Nico, man, because I thought about it and I said it on Saturday. Okay, I had some people over on Saturday and I said this on Saturday, and I felt like a damn genius because I finally figured it out. Nico's pocket presence, here it is, man. He maximizes his time in the pocket. He maximizes every time he's in the pocket,
Mm.
dude. It's not just that he has the feel for it, bro. It's that he waits until the very last second if he needs to. Sometimes he makes just a
Mm.
quick decision, but sometimes he'll wait till the very last second to make a decision and have just enough time to get the ball out. Okay, he maximizes his time in the pocket because he has such a good feel for it that he can stand in there until literally the like because on that squirrel play it looks like he could get sacked. Okay, it looks like he could get sacked, but he just knew. He's like, okay, I have this amount of time. I can wait this amount of time, and then I'm going to get rid of it at the perfect time and hit an absolute dime down the sideline, dude. He maximizes his time in the pocket, man. That's what he does best.
That's special too, right? And that's some really good insight, that you're having there in terms of that, because it's an intangible quality that that is setting him apart in terms of his talent as a quarterback. And so, yeah, man. I mean, I think again, and maybe um, maybe we're seeing it with rose-tinted glasses, but at the end of the day, it seems like, despite a couple mistakes, it seems like it's like, hey, gr- we're seeing enough where we're like, okay, we're okay with a few mistakes, right? Because this is a redshirt freshman. This is his, second, third start, second, regular season start. And so it's like, yeah, I mean, even the greatest quarterbacks of all time have thrown interceptions, right? And so it's not like he's dishing out, interceptions left and right. And like you said, I think that's a critical point too, is again, that response, right? Because
Yeah.
you, you you look at NC State, and really, we talked about that pick six and how that changed the momentum of the game. That could if a quarterback or a team lets a mistake simmer in their minds, then that's what can happen, right? And it seemed like Nico just hey, boom, right back to it the next drive. So
Yeah,
we love to see
totally,
that.
man. Yeah, and the last thing I'll shout out about Nico is just he is a special runner, dude. I mean, he is a special runner. Like
Mm.
he doesn't look like he's moving that quick, but he's moving so quick. Like on the
Oh, it's
quarterback
crazy.
draw, dude. On the quarterback
That
draw, man.
31-yard touchdown, yeah, it was wild.
Dude, he literally just ran away from the defense, just right up the hole. Yeah, it was a big hole. It was a great call by Heupel, but dude, he just ran away from everybody. Like that was a great call to get a first down. The intention of that play was not to score. That was not the intention. It was to get a few more yards, to get in a better field goal position, or potentially get a first down if the defense is so clueless that they have no idea where Nico's at. But he literally just ran right up the middle and ran away from everyone. So I mean, he needs to keep using his legs. I mean, he does such a good job of using his legs within the pocket, escaping the pocket, extended plays. But even on designed runs like that, I mean, it's just such a. I mean, it's going to be a critical part of the offense. It just adds yet another part of the offense that makes it even more dangerous. And you know, really, the last thing I have to say about the offense is there's still more to be got from this offense. I think they're so
Mm.
talented that they could even perform even better, dude. Like as well as because like you said, they put up 44 points. Like they're running the ball really well. Dylan Sampson is an absolute animal. And the receiving core looks good. The tight ends, I got a shot at the tight ends. The tight ends look amazing.
Yeah, they look great.
All three of them are looking really good. But dude, I mean, I don't even think this was like it was an A+ defensive performance, but I would rank it like a B offensive performance. To be honest, like if you just watch the game and you see each drive, you're like, oh man, you know they missed a play here, they missed a play there,
Yep.
a penalty here. So that's I mean the fact that there's still room to get better in the season, and we just won 51-10 against a top 25 team. I mean that's extremely exciting.
It's incredible. I mean, again, going back to what we were saying earlier, like we so put it this way, right? We talked about how okay, we talked about this a few podcasts ago, and then earlier on this episode, we were talking about okay, if you're in a position where you lose a game early, or if you just eke out a win against NC State, you can still grow over the season. You can still get better over the season. Probably better said was to say uh, teams, especially good teams, will naturally get better over the season, right? And so the fact that we absolutely drubbed this good NC State team, and like you said, there's still room to grow, and that growth is going to happen. That is a great place to be
Yep.
this early in the season.
You made a great point because Heupel always says that, dude. If you listen to his press conferences, he always says good teams get better throughout the course of the season. And this team obviously looks really good. I mean, they're getting national recognition all over the place. They're ranked seventh in the country. They're clearly a good team. This team has clearly a lot of talent. Now the question is, are you a great team? Are you a team like Heupel's mentioning? Are you going to be a team that gets better throughout the course of the season? Okay,
Yep.
cleans up the penalties. Okay, becomes even sharper on offense. Sustains success on defense. And I agree with what you said earlier that as Vol fans, we need to understand that defense is going to give up touchdowns at some point. Like we play in the hardest league in the world outside of playing the dang NFL. So they're going to give up touchdowns at some point. There's going to be regression. But as long as you can sustain at least being good to great defense somewhere in that range, then dude, the literally the limit for this team is national championship. That's 100% the limit. At the very least, getting in the playoffs. I don't see why that can't be the limit at this point.
100%. I mean, you heard it here first, folks. Like the you're absolutely right. I mean, the limit. There's no reason it shouldn't be the limit, right? Especially getting in this 12-team playoff. If in other words, if the trajectory of this team changes at this point, then that's going to be a bad sign. Like the trajectory is headed in a great direction at this point. And so, yeah, you've been making a lot of great points, in terms of Nico's dual threat, and just the running game. I mean, Dylan Sampson, I mean, he just, I literally don't think I've seen whoever the first defender is to get to him. I don't think I've ever seen the first defender make the play on Dylan
Ever.
Sampson.
Literally ever, dude. It's insane. Like we
So
said that after the Chattanooga game, and it's like, well, it's Chattanooga. Like same thing with the NC State, man. Every time he's in the open field, he just makes the first guy miss every single time, dude. And that's what sets a running back apart, man. Like your offensive line is the biggest determining factor for your run game. But what makes your run game truly special, especially in college, is if you have a guy like Dylan Sampson who can force mixed tackles. Because you know our O line's going to open it up. But how do you turn a 4 yard gain into a 12 yard gain? Okay, you make that guy in the middle of the defense miss. And that's what Sampson
yeah.
does on a consistent basis. Plus, you add his threat as a pass catcher. It's like he's a complete back, man. He's a total complete back. Plus a leader. Obviously we're not in the locker room. All I can go on is based on clips online and what Hypo says. But Dylan Sampson's a huge leader in the locker room, man. Like he is. I mean, at this point, dude, he's become one of the most important pieces on the team.
And it's it's funny because he definitely needs to get more recognition and more respect because everyone's rightfully talking about Nico, right? But you've got this great running back. I saw someone talking online about hey, can Nico and Dylan Sampson split the Heisman? Like now I'll briefly talk about on one of our last or previous episode. I think it was the game preview for NC State. I said, hey, you'll hear it here first, folks, that Nico will submit himself in the conversation for Heisman after this game. Um, Probably, again, unfortunately, the media, they're just going to see the two interceptions, and I don't know if they're going to, be able to understand kind of, really what's going on there. But I am still confident, even after this game, that Nico is still, proving himself to be a potential contender for the Heisman, in terms of his performance. He's just, he's that good, and especially if he continues to improve, right, through these mistakes. But then, man, I mean, shoot, could it be that we're talking about Dylan Sampson in a few weeks in the Heisman race? Who knows?
I don't see how, with the numbers he's putting up right now, he's not at least in the conversation. Now, Heisman conversation is extremely like it's very early on in the conversation. We're not going to really
Yeah.
know who's setting themselves apart until about week 8, week 9. But right now, I mean, at the very least, I won't say he's a Heisman contender right now, although I think he could be. I will say, from what I've seen, and I watch these games, dude. I'm watching it, dude. I've got 3 TV set up. I'm watching. I'm watching every game I can. Now, if the Vols are on, I'm locked in. But point is, I'm watching these games, bro. Dylan Sampson, at the very least, looks like the best running back in the SEC. At the very
Yeah.
least, dude. I mean, he's just absolutely balling out, dude. So it's so exciting right now to be a Vol fan, dude, because you have an elite quarterback, you have this elite running back, you have this really solid wide receiver core, a great offensive line. I mean, the offensive line was fantastic. Need to shout them out as well in the NC State game, just making beautiful pockets for Nico, opening it up for Sampson. And then the elite defense, man, which is like, that's why we spent so much time on it, dude. It's literally the story of the season, is how well the defense has looked, dude. Um, so it's just not a lot of holes on this football team, man.
And it's where we want to be. I mean, it's a great place to be,
100%.
and so super exciting. So we kind of, I mean, typically with these game reviews, we kind of talk about the offense and the defense. We've kind of done that, for this game review. So what do you think the biggest kind of moving forward? Okay, so we're episode that'll drop a couple days after this one. We'll be reviewing Kent State. Um, Kent State previously was known as the worst team in college football, right? We may not have a ton to say with the review for Kent State. We don't want to look past them, right? But everyone's thinking about Oklahoma. Everyone's thinking about the start of SEC play. So, what do you think is kind of the main, like, hey, we're coming out of NC State with this great defensive performance. We've still got some room to improve throughout the team, right? Especially on offense. We're like, okay, we've got some areas we can improve on offense. So what do you think the main kind of focus is for this volunteer team coming out of this NC State win?
What the main focus should be, dude, is the concern for me, dude, is the penalties. You have to clean up the
Yeah.
penalties. I mean, it
Yeah.
is a huge problem. We were, at the end of the day, bro, we were a much better football team than NC State. I mean, that's the reality. We had more talent, and we literally look like Georgia does to some teams. Okay,
Yeah.
and that can be deceiving because newsflash, we play Georgia. So if you play like you did on offense at times against NC State, you're not going to be able to beat high level competition, dude. So that's my biggest takeaway. Like as far as like the good things from the game, there's way more good than bad. A lot to be excited
Yeah.
about, but there is. I mean, the penalties have reared the ugly head again, dude. So that's like really the one thing I take away and say, hey, we got to clean it up, and they got to focus on it. And we'll see how they look, man. I mean, we'll see how they clean that up.
Yeah, and hopefully, I mean, obviously, Heupel and his staff get paid millions of dollars. They're much more knowledgeable and professional than we are. So surely, if we can identify, they can, and they can, work on that to try to, get this thing cleaned up. It's a little concerning since it's happened. It's been happening for a couple of years and a couple seasons now.
Yep.
These kind of sloppy penalties. But yeah, I think I would agree with you. That's kind of my main concern. Other than, again, I think there were the mistakes that were seen maybe on the O line or by Nico or even on defense or whatever. I think those were either going to happen at some point or that it's can be learned from and they can grow and things like that. The
I
one
agree.
thing that is like a thorn, it seems to be, are the penalties for sure. But like you said, man, I think overall though, mostly positive takeaways in terms of Nico continuing to look like a great star at quarterback, the offense in general, and the running game just again is going to be absolutely stellar, and then obviously the defense was huge in this game. So a lot of positives coming out of this game.
Yep.
A lot to be excited about for sure. So.
All right,
So,
man.
with that being said, I mean, you got any final thoughts on NC State?
No, man.
It was,
Sorry, NC State
yeah, it was,
fans.
yeah, it
It's
was
kind of
it was
rough.
a bummer yeah, kind of rough to show up to Panther Stadium down in Charlotte and have to get drubbed. I think
Whew.
I saw some footage of them leaving in the third quarter, which is
Dude, trying to
it's
beat traffic, bro.
I mean, you can't blame them. I mean, I would be too if I was getting drubbed like that,
Bro.
and I had
Yeah.
a long drive home, so I'd be leaving in the third
Well,
quarter too.
good news, NC State fans. You got ACC opponents from here on out, so good
That's right.
news.
That is the good news. And hey, I mean, honestly, NC State, they still might be able to, pull in an ACC championship. We'll see,
Oh,
but
dude, that would be hilarious.
that would be funny. But hey, great win. Go Vols. Awesome game. Thank y'all for joining us for this episode of Vol Talk. We were reviewing the big win of the Vols, 51-10 over NC State. And again, great game. Join us again in a couple days. We will drop our episode previewing Kent State. Again, not necessarily a huge monumental podcast for a huge monumental game, but hey, you got to beat every opponent on your schedule, right?
Yeah.
Including the Kent States. So so we will see y'all for the Kent State preview. Thank y'all again for joining us. We'll talk to y'all later.
Later. GBO.